Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't listened to part 1 of my conversation with Rusty Keeler, pause right now and go back. It's the episode right before this one. Season 5, episode 19, part 1. Trust me, you'll want the full context. Okay, so in part 1, we talked about why adventurous play matters and how childhood has changed. We covered risks versus hazards, the power of loose parts, and this beautiful idea of adults wearing a cloak of invisibility to let play unfold. But I know what you may be thinking. That sounds amazing, Olivia, but how? How do I actually make this happen when I'm dealing with administrators, insurance companies, licensing requirements, and caregivers who might lose their minds if they see kids building with old tires and boards? That's exactly what we're tackling today. Here's the big truth Rusty's going to reveal. The biggest barrier to adventurous play isn't actually insurance companies or safety regulations. It's phantom policies, rules we've internalized as unchangeable truth, when really they're just our own projections and fears. Rusty's going to walk us through the real world implementation of adventure play. We're talking storage solutions for the organization Lovers Among Us. Yes, you can have loose parts and maintain order. We're confronting the liability myth head on. And spoiler alert, insurers are often way more chill about this than we imagine. And we're diving into the Anarchy Zone in Ithaca Children's Garden, a 13-year success story that proves this can work in the United States. You'll learn why the boring adult stuff, those conversations with administrators and board members, it's actually sacred work that protects childhood. You'll discover how to name real concerns, address them directly, and stop using licensing won't allow it as a scapegoat for I'm uncomfortable with it. And for educators especially, you'll learn why watching children at outdoor play might be the richest professional learning that you never knew you needed. If you've ever wanted to advocate for something that you deeply believe in, but felt buried under red tape and institutional resistance, this episode is your relief. Let's make this happen together. This is Schoolutions Teaching Strategies, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that isn't just theory, but practical, try-it-tomorrow approaches for educators and caregivers to ensure every student finds their spark and receives the support they need to thrive. All right, listeners, this is part 2 of my conversation with Rusty Keeler. If you have not already listened to part 1, pause this, go back, listen. It's the episode right below this. All right, Rusty, we have been talking about play and loose parts and the importance of kids being out in nature with as few rules as possible. So I wanted to kick off part 2 with you sharing. You have written and gathered a guide to 100 outdoor loose parts. Why are loose parts so important when it comes to natural environments and play?
Yeah. So I design natural play spaces, and I love the idea of playgrounds being, instead of monkey bars and just equipment, to be rolling hills and sand and water and mud, sculpture, musical instruments, trees, gardens, greenhouses, chickens. And so a lot of people are going for that kind of thing, but the vast majority of people don't have that kind of thing or access to those. And people are bringing that in. So I always try to inspire people to, how can we add nature to your yard, whatever it is. But the one thing that can change every yard and that does not have to cost a lot of money at all is the loose parts. If you want to boost outdoor play, if you want to boost creativity, if you want to, give children the opportunity to work together in new ways and have control over their environment, to change their environment day to day, it's loose stuff. And I think about like classrooms, like if you had a beautiful classroom environment and there's, painted a nice warm color and there's bookshelves and there's nice furniture and sinks and tables and chairs and all this kind of stuff. But there's no books, there's no art materials, there's no plastic dinosaurs, there's no, you know, drawing materials, anything. That would be so ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
It'd be crazy. And so often children's outdoor environments are like that. You might spend all this money on equipment and call it good, and it could be good, but to make it great, it's the loose stuff. And the beauty of that is that loose parts don't have to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
They can be cardboard boxes. They can be leftover sports equipment, even that you've gathered from a sports team that you know. Get a box of old tennis balls from the tennis team
Yeah.
or soccer balls from the soccer team, and boards and tools and rakes and shovels and all that kind of stuff. And then once you start adding that, and no matter what kind of playground you have, if it is all metal equipment and rubber surfacing, you could have a messy corner. You could have one area that is loose parts, and you could have loose parts that add to that playground. If you have a natural play space with trees and hills, beautiful. Loose parts will take that to the next level. And people who know loose parts, you know the magic. You know once you put it out there, it's like you put it out there and then you stand back and then you get to see like the beauty of play, of like really the flow of imagination and creativity, and that it is a flow, that one thing changes into another, into another, into another. And it's based on what we put out there and how we can step back and just allow it to happen or step in as we need to. With the play work model, they want to only intervene to prolong the play. They
Oh,
want to have the lightest touch possible of adult intervention. So if something's really dangerous, okay, they'll come in and do something, stop it. Or if there's like social issues or dynamics, okay, they'll come in and kind of help some of that kind of stuff. But they talk about having like a cloak of invisibility.
it's
Like you
beautiful.
put out the loose parts, put out the cardboard and the boards and the Jaffa cones and hula hoops, and then you just step back, and then it might be like you're invisible, and then you see, oh, okay, they're almost done with all the blocks in the sand area and the frying pans. What would help that? And you might like add a few more loose parts. You might add a few things, and then you step back. So it's like, okay, what can we put out there, and then how do we support it? How do we say yes?
Okay, so I have 2 questions, 2 things that are running through my mind right now. Organization, and then I also, because I am very type A and I like clean, neat spaces. This
Yep.
does not sound clean, this does not sound neat, but it also, I think I need to get out of my own way and
Uh
mind
huh.
space. So how do you organize for this to be successful? And is it even necessary that the space gets cleaned up or things get put away as recess is wrapping up?
Yeah. We are all on a spectrum of our relationship to mess, right? And
Yes.
it's all okay. Wherever you're at is okay. And I would say so with loose parts, it's the same thing. Where there are some programs that are like, we have loose parts out there and we never clean up. That's not even we just it's always out there.
Okay.
And they would say even philosophically, we purposefully don't clean up because we
Right.
always want the materials available anytime, all the time for children to look around and get and use. So they're like, that's our philosophy. And that might even be your philosophy, but maybe you have a center where you're or a school that you're sharing the site, or it's a public site and you have to clean up, or if you're on a church ground or a synagogue or something that you're like, okay, we gotta neaten it up. And that's okay too. Like you can still do loose parts if you have to feel like you clean up, or if you like to clean up, or if you like to have that kind of neat space. So that could be like how you manage, how you have storage, how you have either big storage where everything goes in, or you have satellite storage areas, sand play, loose stuff near the sand, or garden tools near the garden area in this little storage and that kind of thing. You could also, so not only like the cleanup, but you could also just have maybe a messy corner
Yeah, I like
so
that.
that you could have a nice tidy yard, and maybe that's also like, okay, would you have neighbors that you have to, want 'em to look nice for, or on the front or the back,
Right.
but you could have a messy corner or an anarchy corner,
I love it.
and then you could have it screened off. You could plant shrubs around it, so it felt like, "Okay, back there's the mess," and that will be the hot spot for
Yeah,
children,
it
like,
will.
that will be
Yeah,
the go-to place,
yeah.
but yes, you could screen it off, you could get bamboo screening around a chain link fence, you could, you could just kind of tuck it. Often people do that, like, they'll tuck it in places, and
Okay.
then that's the place. And often children will ask for that, like, it's kinda like block building in the classroom. Like, sometimes it's like, "Can we leave this up? They built this great thing. Can we
Yes,
leave it up and
please.
not take it down?" And
Yeah.
so that idea of, like, can you have some of that goes from day to day that they continue? Or if you're in elementary school, it's interesting to have stuff out there, and when one group comes in, after recess,
Yes.
the next group comes out, and then what do they do with it?
You're
Or
walking in
or
my mind, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's exactly what I was just going to ask because when I was teaching kindergarten, we never took our block structures down. I made sure that when I designed the classroom, that structure was always living, breathing for months at a time,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
fascinating to see how different groups of children there was freedom, and we had to set the norm that even if you've built the castle that you want to move into when you're 30, that castle may get knocked down and
Mhm.
other people may add on to it and enhance it or change it, and let's see what happens. Let's be curious. So I'm now reflecting on that as you share, and I'm thinking why that'd be so cool to see outside and watch how different grades or different peers change and morph the structures over time. So I also think I'm wondering about the teacher role. This could be a whole separate conversation, but I'm thinking about the role of grown-ups. If I were outside as a teacher, I would want a tiny notepad of where I'm watching the interactions with children and just watching successes that I would then be able to name for kids when I see them, like, "I really appreciated how you did this," or lean into curiosity and ask more questions about their choices at recess. So often our kids in the classroom say, "I don't know what to write about," or they may be quieter. And as a teacher, I would wanna just capture those moments of watching kids and, just noticing all of their strengths and assets. So, um,
Those things are important. The
yeah,
the the activities that they do out there, if the adult could be like, "Oh, they're just messing around with sticks and mud, blah, blah, blah." But for them, that was huge, and the
yeah,
imagination and its story, and it is like collaboration, or it could be delicate collaboration with people, but it really is vitally important.
yeah.
And so, yeah, to acknowledge it and to, celebrate it or ask questions about it back in the classrooms. Yeah, it's validating it.
Sure is. It sure is. And it's validating to show that the grown-ups believe in this just as much. We know the kids will be thrilled to have this opportunity, but the grown-ups need to show up and believe in it too. Um,
Mhm.
and I love the idea of this being a movement. And with that said, then I can picture admin, I can picture the school district lawyers saying, wait a second, you've already spoken in part one to the difference between risks and hazards. So let's talk liability.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is definitely a key part of the conversation, from the adult perspective.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I mean, there's fear of kids getting hurt, but then there's also fear of like, okay, what are parents going to say if a kid gets hurt?
Right.
What's insurance companies going to say about it? What's the district going to say? The board, and then people, the aides that are out there at lunch feel like, oh, if somebody gets hurt, I could lose my job and stuff. So there's all these things that are more than just, "Oh, play is good for children, and look at the creativity and the celebration of it." So those are the kind of the obstacles. Those are a lot of the obstacles or challenges to saying yes. And so it's interesting because, it's a lot of it's like, wait a second, getting back to like common sense,
Yeah.
right? Because there's just so much going on in our minds and all the adults are so busy. So, I talked to licensors. Part of my journey in the book of Adventures in Risky Play, I know that licensing is a big part of it because so many people say, oh, if I show pictures, they're like, oh, that's really great, but my licensor would never. And so, it's some interesting things. One was that at the higher level, the highest level state licensors, they believe in risk. They
Yeah.
believe in the importance of it for children. They know that children need to access it, and they need to because ultimately, by children accessing risk and then being able to assess it for themselves, that's how they learn to make good choices in their life and know what
Yes.
they want to do and what they don't want to do. If it's the adult saying no, 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 you'll get hurt, you'll poke your eye out, and all that jazz, they're not going to get to do that. And we see that with children who are more protected or don't get those opportunities when they finally are free range, after when they graduate high school or go on beyond, they have
They're
trouble with
lost.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, they're lost, and so they need that. So that's almost like I feel like sometimes it's like the world is upside down.
Mhm.
Like, really, to have children be safer and have less accidents and less insurance claims, they need to have those opportunities to decide for themselves and learn with their bodies and their in space and all that stuff. But, how do we get there? And so, it's talking about this stuff, but also with licensing, another thing that they told me was that sometimes, and this is interesting, that they feel like they are the scapegoats. Like, "Oh, licensing wouldn't let me have logs in there," I know they wouldn't
Yeah.
let logs, but licensing would be like, "What do you mean? Logs look great," or they and so that's people's own personal, comfort level with risk. I feel it with the early childhood world, it's conversations with licensing. It's if you believe in this and if it's, we're thinking about advocacy, it's like, why are we doing this? Why is this beneficial for the children to have logs, to have loose frying pans in a mud kitchen?
Yeah.
Um, and really having to use our voices. And I know, with early childhood people or, even teachers that might feel like they're alone in supporting and believing in play, um, you know, they didn't get into the business to be talking to administration and licensing and insurance. And same with early childhood, professionals that want to just be with kids and celebrate the play and yet, sometimes I say, like, we adults have to do the boring stuff, talking to licensed so the kids can do the good stuff,
I
right? So,
appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that can be a great thing when we realize it, like, "Wait, okay, I'm doing this because I know how important that is for children, and I'm protecting it," and that's, like, whether it's holding back the world of academics coming down or technology or what how do we keep that sacred space of childhood and play and freedom? And so it's how do we work around the outside in those things?
Yeah.
And we did that with the Anarchy Zone, and I don't know if we're going to talk about that too, but
Yeah, we are. Well, let's
yeah,
go there. Let's go there.
yeah,
And so, I mean, and I cannot recommend your website more. Your podcast is magnificent, but
thank you.
you've done so much of the heavy lifting for us with your books, and so that's why listeners, you have to make sure to jump in and read the work that you've done, Rusty. But let's talk the idea of overcoming resistance and the design of the Anarchy Zone. It's in the Ithaca Children's Garden. And, if we're thinking about all of the resistors, all of the resistance, this was a community effort. It is the most magnificent place for our children to grow up having access to. It's one of the beautiful pieces of Ithaca that we have seen evolve from our youngest son being born here and our oldest son being born here in 2007 to the zone, to the entire area just evolving. So, talk Anarchy Zone and really how it helps our kids develop confidence, competence, all the things.
Sure. Um, so the Anarchy Zone is an adventure play inspired outdoor environment on the grounds of the Ithaca Children's Garden here in Ithaca, which is like a 3 or 4 acre natural space, and there's sculpture and musical instruments and a kitchen and formal gardens and chickens and all sorts of stuff. But there's also this wild and woolly, messy adventure playground anarchy area where kids are free to, dig in the dirt and build things with boards and logs and balance on things. And there's International Mud Day happens there, and there's trees to climb and rope, and kids are building zip lines and all that kind of incredible free stuff. And so, early on, I love these adventure playgrounds. I've done, study tours, in different countries, UK and stuff in Berlin and Denmark and everything. And you just see all this, kids doing these incredible things at these adventure, wild and woolly, loose part, raw adventure playgrounds. And, people would say, oh, you can do that in Europe, but we can never do it in here because of insurance and licensing, da, da, da. And for me, I'm like, wait a second, no, we really need maybe we're the ones who really need to do this
Yes.
kind of thing, like, we're desperate
Yeah.
we're desperate for it. So I'm always like, I'm kinda like I like just kinda like plowing ahead because I believe in this. So my journey was I was, like, trying to find partners, and we came to the Ithaca Children's Garden, and it was like I was like, "Hey, how about some loose parts?" Or, Look at these, brochures from Berlin of adventure play." And so we teamed up. The director, Erin Martillo, was like, "Yes," she wanted to take things to the next level. So we formed a group with I had a contacts with, US Fish and Wildlife of New York State, power duo husband and wife team who she was a play person at Cornell, and so we started it, and it was just a kind of a at that point, just like a vacant lot corner of the children's garden that was unused, but it was like, what if it was loose parts? What if, kids could build here? What if we have programs? What if there's play workers? What if there's so that's what happened, but f and now here it is, like, 13, 14 years later, and it's
Yeah,
going strong, and every time you visit it, it's incredible and
it's
different because
incredible.
of who is there and what they're building, and, it's just so fun. So it has become its own institution and ongoing because the children's garden, completely has embraced it and taken it over and, yeah, keeping it going. But in the beginning, there were okay, we had to talk to the board,
Yeah.
okay, about having loose parts and kids building things. We had to talk to it's on city land, so we had to talk to the lawyers and the insurance company and stuff, and of course, we went in, like, white knuckled, uh, talking about this wild idea. How can we get light insurance for it and da da da? Well, it turned out the insurance kinda was like, "What? That's no big deal. We insure the city was like, "We insure the public pool, we insure all these parks by gorges in the lake," and they're like,
It's true.
"Kids climbing trees and digging in the dirt, yeah, no problem."
Awesome.
And we're like, "Oh, okay. Bye."
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
got it.
yeah. So, I think that having those conversations about what it really is, I mean, so much with all the risk and all this is like in our minds, we have fears about things happening or, and that's so strong and we wanna protect our kids, we wanna protect our young, that's how, we survive. Um, but it's kind of like, okay, wait, what is really necessary? And how do we address the real concerns? And then how do we let go of concerns that are not necessarily based in reality, that just might be our fears? I feel like it's good to protect our young, but we don't wanna get bogged down in especially with fears that might be false.
Yeah.
Like, if childhood has changed because we've been so nervous about kids being, abducted, but you look at the real statistics and it is like, that is not what's
No,
going on,
no.
and it's safer than, decades and decades ago and all this stuff, but it's like, "Wait, we've changed it because of this?" So I'm like, "Okay, we need to work together here and, like, lead with our hearts, but also be strong of like, okay, use our voices." Be like, "No, okay," and address things that are real concerns, real safety concerns, and real issues, and real insurance, and all that stuff. But to try to lead with our hearts and, like, say and make a strong stand, say, "Wait, this is necessary. We need to do something to support children's play, to support children's freedom, to be able to have children grow in the natural way, in the way that nature, like, created us to try things out and make things and be creative and have social experiences and fall and get up and learn how to be
Yeah.
as we are being, as children are being."
Beautifully said, Rusty, beautifully said, and so, I can't thank you enough for this advocacy. It is advocacy work. It's advocacy on behalf of our children and helping them see that the world is not a scary place. The world is a place for adventure. Something you said that is just gonna bounce around in my mind for a long time is the idea of adults positioning themselves in the role of, "How can I prolong play?" instead of quell the idea of hazards and risk taking. I just think that's a beautiful
Mm,
reframing. And so I'm going to ask myself, how can I join communities to ensure play is prolonged for our children? And I will tuck all of your details into the show notes. Your website, again, is fabulous.
thank you.
And, the other thing I'll ask for you to circle back with via email is communities that we can become aligned with so we can advocate for this work as well, because I know so many people that I'm connected with truly believe in the importance of play. So thank you, Rusty, so much for taking the time to chat.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Okay, I have to tell you, when Rusty described going into that meeting with the board and insurance company white knuckled, ready to defend adventure play, and then the insurers basically said, "We insure gorges with waterfalls and public pools. You think we're worried about kids climbing trees?" It made me stop and think, how many times have we told ourselves that we can't do something because they won't let us? And how often is they actually just us? Our own fear wearing an official sounding costume. Here's what I'm taking away from this conversation: the boring adult work, the meetings, the conversations with administrators, the emails to licensing boards, that's not separate from caring for children. That is the work of protecting children. It's advocacy and it's sacred. And we don't have to do it alone. Rusty talked about mobilizing communities, forming think tanks, coming together with other believers. There are networks already out there. Organizations like Opal in the UK, the Reimagining Recess Project, the Ithaca Children's Garden. These aren't theoretical models. They're real places doing this work right now. And they want to help you do it too. I will tuck links to all of those resources and groups in the show notes. Now, next week, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Michelle Chandra Singh. She joins me to talk about representation in storytelling and curriculum. Because here's the thing, we've spent 2 episodes talking about physical freedom and outdoor play, but there's another kind of freedom children need: the freedom to see themselves in the stories they read. When that happens, learning shifts from compliance to genuine connection. It's going to be beautiful, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. Until then, go make some beautiful, messy, adventurous play happen. Take care. Schoolutions Teaching Strategies is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Schoolutions wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, Rusty Keeler, for bringing it back to the forefront. Why are children being outside in nature, playing with loose parts, and letting their imaginations run wild is more important than ever in 2026 and always. So here is your call to action. Don't just let this be a conversation that you listen to. Pick up the phone, send the email, have the boring conversation with one person in a position of decision-making power. You might be shocked at how that locked door just opens right up. Then send me an email at schoolutionspodcast@gmail.com and let me know how it went. And for my fellow Type A organization-loving friends who got a little panicky hearing about those loose parts everywhere, remember, you can have a messy corner. You can have satellite storage. You can clean up at the end of the day if you need to. This doesn't have to be all or nothing. Start where you are. Don't forget to tune in every Monday and Friday for part 1 and part 2 of my shorter guest conversations with the best research-backed coaching and teaching strategies that you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. And look for your 60-second bite-sized piece of learning on Wednesdays from our conversation to share with a colleague. Take care, and thank you for forever getting better with me. See you next week.